including Edward James.
There's sick people out in this world.
Police say he fled across country after he destroyed a family. We've been tracking James for 3 weeks, and your tips caught him.
I was able to see the teeth, which was a dead giveaway, especially since seeing the program the evening before.
Tonight, his confession.
There's nothing I can do to even begin to make it right, or apologize or say I'm sorry. And I just soon come get me and put me out. The sooner the better.
Also tonight on America's Most Wanted. Last year, we brought you the story of James Vernon Winters. He terrorized 2 women for years, forcing them into hiding.
I know you're Cindy's, but never leave me.
Police say his threats were real. He had already killed once. But these courageous women came forward, joined together, then forced their stalker into hiding. And to an ending no one expected.
It's freedom. It's what everybody deserves.
Good evening from Washington. I'm John Walsh, and this is America's Most Wanted. Our first story tonight's about a road trip. Police say 2 unidentified tourists are traveling across America, soaking up culture, stealing cars, and kidnapping the elderly. The journey starts in Memphis, Tennessee, at the home of the King. More than 600,000 fans visit Elvis Presley's home every year. Here at Graceland, they walk through the King's private palace and feel a little closer to the man behind the rock and roll legend. Most fans stop to have their pictures taken at Elvis's grave. But these photos are no ordinary souvenirs. They could help track down 2 of America's most wanted. The pictures were taken at Graceland sometime after 2 p.m. on September 23rd. Police say the next day, these same unidentified fans began a 3-state crime spree. But along the way, they made a series of blunders. After the men left Graceland, they crossed the state line into Arkansas, ending up in Conway. It's here that their adventures and misadventures began. First, police say they stole a car from this budget car lot.
I was surprised at the car they took. Out of all of them here, I'm glad that's the one they got. It was probably the oldest one on the lot. I think it was just the only key they could find.
In Fowler's 1978 Chrysler, the men headed west on I-40 to Clarksville. They barely made it to the parking lot behind a local convenience store.
They robbed the Dodger Dog convenience store with what the clerk described as a black handgun, semi-automatic handgun.
But the getaway car wouldn't start, and when no one would help them get it started, the fugitives looked for another car. They found 2 in a nearby garage. True to form, police say, the men picked the one with no gas in it. The car died on them less than 2 miles away. Police say what they left in the garage, however, was much more important than the car they took. In a knapsack were clothes, cash from the robbery, a ticket from Graceland, and their pictures.
When I started looking at the pictures, I noticed the background looked very familiar, and I told the chief, I said, that's Graceland. I said, I've been there, I know what it looks like. One of the pictures, in fact, 2 of the pictures, you can see Elvis Presley's gravesite in the background.
Now, police knew the faces of the men they were looking for and where they'd been. Meanwhile, the fugitives desperately needed another car. But when they stopped at Wesley Hanscom's small yellow house on Route 2 in Clarksville, they got more than just another ride.
They said they needed somebody to jumpstart their car. And I have cable, so I offered to do it.
Hanscom didn't know he was being kidnapped until he turned his van onto the interstate. The men told Hanscom about the robbery in Clarksville and that he was now going to Oklahoma with them.
The thought put through my mind was that can I hit one of them and then the other one fast enough to put him out of commission? See, but that was the... But I was afraid then if I hit the driver, we would have probably gone off the road. So I didn't do it.
I think he handled it like a professional. I mean, to be as his age, 79 years of age, and have the presence of mind to keep calm.
When they got to Chakota, Oklahoma, they checked into room 121 at the Midway Motel. That's where the fugitives decided to get rid of Hanscom. First, they tied him up.
And I was very careful to keep my legs out good and straight. And I didn't give him too much slack with my arms. I held my wrist this way.
They left him stranded in the room, where he waited until he was sure they were gone.
Then I drawed my feet up in my arm so then I could take my gag off my face, and I could bring my arms up, and I started chewing on the bandages and so forth. I couldn't quite slip them off my hands, so I started biting on them and tearing the cloth until finally I got it loose.
Wesley Hanscom escaped unharmed. The FBI believes no one's been hurt by these fugitives so far.
The FBI's concern is what will they do if they come across a victim that is resistant. We're afraid they're going to get carried away and actually injure someone and possibly kill somebody, and that's what we're concerned about.
These fugitives may have police all shook up, but with your help, police hope they'll soon be singing a different tune.
I'd say Jailhouse Rock, because that's where we're hoping to put them.
The kidnappers' trail ends in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They abandoned Mr. Hanscom's van there, but his license plates haven't been found. The FBI believes the kidnappers may be using those plates now on another stolen car. Take a close look at the kidnappers. The short one went by the name Don. He's about 5'6" and has blonde hair and glasses. The tall one went by the name John. He's about 6'2" and has dark hair and a mustache. In the knapsack, agents also found a Kansas State University sweatshirt. If you recognize either of these men, call our hotline at 1-800-CRIME-93. Chief of Clarksville Police, Ken Wilson, and FBI agent Nanette Shoemaker are here tonight to take your calls. And as produce runners rush the season's last bounty to market, law enforcement is watching. They're on the lookout for one of America's most wanted.
The Childers were my neighbors. They lived across the street, catty corner, on Penny Lane. Ed Childers was in his 50s. He was a produce runner.
Get your butt in the truck. Hell's your mother.
His son was Ed Jr. We called him Ace. He was about 5 years old. His wife, Debbie, was young enough to be his daughter.
What in the hell is a holdup?
Just making lunch for us, Ed.
Well, you should have thought about that last night. Get in the truck. Get in the truck.
She was 21. A little girl, real strong.
Come on, Ed. Let's go.
I took her under my wing. She was like an older child to me. Debbie and Ed didn't have a good relationship. They fought a lot. Ed was lazy. Debbie worked hard. When she would complain, he would haul off and hit her, threaten her. Debbie did most of the work. He barely did anything. He drove. He delivered. She worked.
Ain't you done yet?
Ed, just help me out a little bit.
You talk to me that way, you hear?
beginning. Debbie, she really liked Ed. I think she more or less looked at Ed as a father figure, her being so young. After all, she was only 13 when she ran away with him.
Now, Ace, don't get that water in my house.
As time passed, police say Childers became more abusive toward his young wife, both verbally and physically.
I hope I'm dead before I'm 25.
Don't talk that way. You're down now, but things can only get better.
Sometimes I think I shouldn't have brought him into this world either.
You shouldn't talk that way in front of Ace.
And that's not the only time that she had said that. She had said it more and more, time and time again. It was just so sad to see Debbie like that, so depressed, so sad. And it just got progressively worse every day.
Quit. Okay, truth.
August 1983. After putting up with Childers and his abuse for 8 years, Debbie found another man and a chance for happiness.
Well, I better get back to work, darling.
See you soon.
Tomorrow, or did you forget?
Hey, Jackie. Well, don't you look like the cat who swallowed the canary?
No, you were right. Things have gotten a lot better.
Well, honey, just don't let Ed know how good.
He's gonna find out when I tell him it's over.
Be careful, hon.
Yeah.
I was happy for Debbie, but also worried. This was the first time she'd been happy in her entire life, and it was something she had to do.
I'm leaving you.
I'll cut your damn head off if you try to leave.
November 6, 1983, 2 a.m. Another late-night screaming match began in the Childers trailer, but this time the argument sounded unusually violent.
It went on through the night. Ace came running out of the house. He was screaming and hollering. Debbie was screaming and screaming. And all of a sudden, the scream just got cut off, just like you just shut off a remote on the TV. And Ed came out, and he grabbed the baby by his wrist, and he threw him back in the house, slung him in, and then slammed the door back. And then it got quiet. It stayed quiet for a while. That morning, I saw Ed and Ace come out of the trailer. They got in the truck, and they left. I didn't see Debbie. Debbie wasn't in the truck.
Debbie? Debbie, you in there? Debbie?
It was a mess. I saw the blood everywhere. On the walls, on the floor, the meat cleaver on the counter. And there was blood all over the door, like she had been scratching, trying to get out. And I went in, calling her, no response, so I went through the house looking for her. And I came back home, and I told my sister that Debbie was hurt real bad.
Barb, there is
Before
something
Jacqueline could get to a payphone to call police, Childers returned with Ace. But still, no sign of Debbie.
Ed went in the house, gathered up a bunch of things, and threw them in the back of the truck.
He's packing up his stuff, and he's fitting to go. I'm gonna go after him. If I'm not back here in 15 minutes, call the law. Look, find a phone, call them now.
And I proceeded to follow him. I got real close to him, real close to his bumper. He knew I was behind him. I was blowing the horn, I was hollering at him. The baby was in the back of in the truck, turned around backwards, looking back, had his little hands by his face, and he was shouting at me. He was trying to tell me something.
Ed, I'm giving that little ball!
And I was right on his bumper, and he would not stop. He kept going. I looked down, and I realized I was running out of gas. So I had to pull over. You know, Ace had to have seen everything. He had to have heard everything. And the sad part is he has to carry it all of his life. I often wonder what he was trying to say to me. I guess I'll never know.
Deputies say Childers abandoned Ace with relatives, then took off on the run. Ace was lucky. He's been adopted by a loving family, but his mother met a tragic end. After a 3-day search, deputies found Deborah's body stuffed into a septic tank behind the trailer. Ed Childers is wanted for first-degree murder.
This photo of the Childers family was in an album left behind when Childers fled. It's the last known photo of Ed. You can see what an odd couple he and Deborah made. Friends say Childers is a big eater with the potbelly to prove it. And he's known as a real slob, the kind of guy who chews with his mouth open. And Childers always wore blue jeans with cowboy boots and a shirt with a pocket for his cigarettes. Here's how Childers may look today. Police believe he's still running produce. It's harvest season, so keep your eyes open at roadside stands, gas stations, and rest areas. And if you spot Ed Childers, call our hotline, 1-800-CRIME-93.
This is home video of Polly Klaas, the 12-year-old girl who was abducted from Petaluma, California. Polly enjoyed drama and music and dreamed of one day becoming an actress. Many of you were moved by Polly's story last week, including actress Winona Ryder, a Petaluma native. Like Polly, Winona began acting on Petaluma stages at an early age. Now Winona is offering a $200,000 reward for Polly's safe return.
Well, because this happened in the community I was raised in, and because of the sort of connection I felt with Polly when I watched her on America's Most Wanted, and when I talked to the family, I just felt like it was something that a person in my position, you know, if I could help at all, that I should.
On October 1st, Polly invited 2 close friends over for a slumber party when police say this man broke into the home and abducted Polly.
One of Polly's friends walked into the door of the room, and she said, "Eve, wake up." A man came into the house. He had a knife. And then I ran into the bedroom, and Polly wasn't there. I said, "Where's Polly? Where's Polly?" And they said, "They took her. He took her. He took Polly."
Petaluma police and FBI agents continue to search for Polly and her abductor as they sort through over 2,000 tips. And Winona Ryder continues to offer her support to bring little Polly back home.
I couldn't sit back and watch something like this happen, and I'm luckily, you know, in a position to offer to get, you know, to get things out there publicly and to financially, you know, offer what I can. And so you know, I obviously, you know, just want Polly back safe.
That's what we all want. Last week you gave police some great leads, but they need more information. Here's a sketch of the abductor. He's tall, about 6'3". He may be in his 30s or 40s, and his dark hair is graying. If you think you know his identity, call our hotline right away. And please, keep your eyes open for Polly. She's just under 5 feet tall, and she's very thin. She only weighs about 80 pounds. Long brown hair is curly. Please, if you know anything about Polly Klass's abduction, anything at all, make that phone call. And remember, you can remain anonymous. The number's 1-800-CRIME-93. Our next story's about a young widow in Natalia, Texas. Lenore Alejandro struggled to raise her 2 children alone. Then she met Ignacio Ibarra. After a whirlwind romance, Ibarra moved in with Lenore and her children. Then things went downhill. For 7 years, Ibarra lived off Lenore. Lenore never dreamed that when Ibarra finally moved out, her daughter would pay the price.
Pretty and popular, Marissa Alejandro was an honor student who planned a career in special education. Close-knit, the Alejandros regularly attended church. Marissa was her brother's best friend and what every mother dreams of in a daughter.
She was in sports. She liked volleyball. She played baseball. In her senior year, that's when she got homecoming queen. She got most beautiful. She was always real close to me.
Whenever I had a problem or something, she was always there to help me out. She would never let me down.
On March 2nd, Marissa disappeared. Ironically, Ignacio packed his bags and moved out the very same day.
The family's been trying to get rid of Ignacio for the past 2 years, definitely. Then, out of the blue, on this particular day, at this particular time, he disappears.
6:30 or 7, Mario called me at work. Told me to go home, that something had happened. He didn't tell me what had happened, but he told me, Mom, I want you to come home. So I was trying to get out of the car, and I started running, and they just hold me, you know, they didn't want to let me go inside.
When we entered the residence and down the hallway into the bedroom, we discovered a pair of feet sticking out from the back end of the bed. Further looking into it and investigating, we discovered the body of Marissa Alejandro.
Deputies say in the early hours of March 2nd, Ibarra sexually assaulted and strangled Marissa, hiding her body under her brother's bed.
He planned it very well, Ignacio did, and maybe even rehearsed it, we don't know. But a first-timer doesn't go through a crime scene so organized without making any mistakes. I believe that he started thinking about it and wanted to leave Miss Alejandro a message, a scar in her heart for the rest of her life. And what other than taking the life of her own daughter.
Deputies say Ibarra is a disturbed and very dangerous man. They want to catch him fast. Ibarra has always worn a mustache, but the morning of the murder, deputies say he shaved it off. Near his left eye, there's a scar from a knife wound. Ibarra is usually a quiet loner, but a good stiff whiskey will bring him out of his shell. And believe it or not, he loves to polka. Ibarra's lived in the U.S. for more than 10 years, but he still relies on an English-Spanish dictionary. Help take an accused killer off the streets. If you know where Ignacio Ibarra is hiding, call 1-800-CRIME-93 right now. It seems as though everyone remembers the story of stalker James Vernon Winters. Well, tonight, the unexpected ending. As our correspondent Lena Nozizwe reports, the story began almost 2 years ago when Margie Shear was trying to escape from Winters.
I, Mary Margaret Shear, have been assaulted several times by James Vernon Winters. I am 6 months pregnant, and he punched me in my stomach when I was 3.5 months along. So I am very much afraid for my life and for the life of my unborn baby.
For Margie Shear, 3 years of abuse was enough. With a baby on the way, she thought it was time to do something about the beatings by her boyfriend, James Winters. In the fall of '91, she went to police in Tacoma, Washington. That was the first step. Next, her cousin, Christine Jensen, helped her escape to Seattle. Winters soon tracked her down, and by the time their daughter was born, they were living together. But fatherhood did little to change his ways.
When she had her baby, that was the turning point in her life. Because she had finally done something that nobody could ever take away from her. She had brought a life into this world, and her baby was her life.
After Margie broke away, Winters began stalking her, terrorizing her with phone calls.
Hi, this is Chris. Leave me a message after the tone.
You play little games, that's fine. We'll see who wins, okay?
And a break-in.
He peed all over everything, her bed, her furniture, floors. It was disgusting.
In January of '92, the campaign of terror escalated when Winters threatened her with a gun. Barely a month later, Winters was able to get to Margie one last time. She agreed to meet with him after he claimed his father had just died.
I don't know what to do.
Margie lost her dad in October, and she felt that she needed to be there for Jim because Jim was there for her when her dad passed away.
I don't know, maybe I should just go over there.
That was the last time Christine saw her cousin. A caller to 911 was one of the last people to see Margie alive.
Yes, I'm down here on 219 North Levy Road. And there's a guy and a girl fighting alongside the road, and he's got a gun in his hand.
Police arrived within minutes, but they were too late.
Once he had finally killed, and we knew that he was capable of doing that, our lives were not safe anymore. We knew that we had to be very, very careful.
For Christine Jensen, being careful meant a call to arms.
Came in with a gun every time. Came into my house. Went from room to room to make sure nobody had been in here. Had to. With kids, you got it.
Winters lived in the shadows and the nightmares of all four of Christine's children.
One night he came along the fence line. We're pretty sure that was him.
It's kind of scary. It makes you cry a little bit.
The fear of Winters was especially tough for 7-year-old Andrew Jensen, who's fighting a life-threatening illness.
All the times I thought that I was going to have my line pulled out by him.
What did you think was going to happen?
My line was going to get pulled out by him.
He got a line connected to his heart because he's got cancer. That's where he gets his chemotherapy through.
I was really scared, and that I wanted him to die. And I hoped that the cops would get him someday.
Last year, America's Most Wanted tried to help the cops get Winters by profiling him on a special on stalkers.
Tell us about James Winters.
On the program, Christine met another woman who'd been terrorized by Winters, his former wife, Merlene Shulhanik. She told her own stories of being stalked and of moving from place to place. Last year, Winters was spotted by neighbors near her home in Oregon.
When he was looking out to your trailer. He sat out here for quite a while, you know, just watching.
There was also a history of threats.
He would tell me that if I ever took my children and left him, that no matter how long it took him, he would find us. And he said he would tie me up and make me watch while he slowly tortured and eventually murdered my children. And then he would kill me.
We were both scared for our own lives. And we found strength in each other. And we could give each other strength. And it meant a lot.
Let's put James Winters behind bars.
After the show, there were sightings of Winters in California, Oregon, and Washington. But Winters had run even further north, to the small town of Falkland in British Columbia.
I met him. He told me what his name was. He said, "My name is John Conger." Fine. You know, I wasn't suspicious at all.
Darlene Cody met Winters 10 months ago in a bar where she served him drinks.
He was just the perfect man.
They settled into this farm, where Darlene says Winters was very much a homebody who made a habit of reading the good book.
John read his Bible all the time. He wore a cross.
Another book discovered later in his library provided more instructions on being born again, but not through redemption.
I didn't know he had this book. But maybe he was going to change his ID and leave again. I don't know.
But he never got the chance. Any plans he had were changed in June when he made a rare trip into town and got into a barroom brawl. He lost the first round, Winters retreated, and then went looking for his opponents for round 2 with a loaded gun. Instead, he found Constable Brian Burke.
I was coming down the street here with my partner when I noticed the person approaching me. He gave us the finger and yelled some obscenities at us.
Moments later, Winters pulled a gun on Burke.
Brought the gun up on me. I had no time to react. I jumped into my vehicle and we left the area.
So did Winters, only surfacing to call Darlene.
He said, I wish I could have met you 25 years ago. Life would have been so different. I said, well, you didn't. Life is what's happening right now, so let's deal with it. He just said, no, I have to go.
Police picked up his trail in this park in nearby Merritt. He was booked as John Conger on a weapons charge for pulling a gun on Constable Burke.
This is the cell where the incident occurred right here.
But Winters would be in jail for less than an hour.
He tore a strip off the blanket approximately 4 inches wide. And with that, he fashioned a noose. When the guard came in to do the routine check, he found that the suspect was hanging from here by the blanket strip.
After he died, police discovered his real identity.
I didn't get to say hello, James Winters. I didn't get to say goodbye, John Conger. I want to know why. Why?
The life of the man known as John Conger is in sharp contrast to the life of the real James Winters, and reaction to his death could not be more different.
I can actually come out my front door. We can leave the kitchen window open all night if we want to. I can look out it and not worry about getting a gunshot. It's amazing.
That I could stand here in this water forever and never be afraid again. Then my soul can fly.
It's freedom. It's what everybody deserves. And us especially. You don't realize what you miss until it's taken away from you.
What was the first thing that you did after you found out what had happened?
I started yelling, yippee, yippee.
It made us feel good that he had actually died. I mean, doesn't sound too right, but I wouldn't wish this on anybody else, but he had pushed it to that point. I was just like in awe. It's like seeing a good magic trick and you don't know how to express your feelings towards it. I just went up to my mom and we hugged and we were crying. And I just told her it's finally over. It's finally over. We don't have to worry anymore.
When Christine and Merlene first met, they made a pact to reunite once Winters was captured.
It's going to be a blast. I cannot wait to see Chris again.
The ending was not as expected, but they still made plans to get together.
I just want to really stand by the front door. And my stomach is just doing butterflies and flip-flops and... Jesus. Can you believe it's over? Together again, kid. No, we can get forever now. Oh, everybody, this is Merlene. Merlene, this is everybody. It's over. It's really over.
Before you shared a mutual enemy, now what do you share?
Friendship. Future.
Togetherness.
So now it's just girlfriends?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Best of friends.
Merlene and Christine suffered through so much for so long. And for more than a year, America's Most Wanted followed the trail of James Vernon Winters. As much as we wanted to close the case, no one could have anticipated that ending. When we come back, a case with just the ending we'd hoped for. Stay with us. Some people wonder what this show is all about. Well, let me tell you. It's about more than just catching crooks. It's about justice. It's about families like mine, victims of violent crime, trying to fight back in the only way they know how, by asking you to help. Now, I'll warn you in advance, the story of Eddie James is very difficult to watch, but few stories have made me this angry. For 3 weeks, I've asked you to help find this accused killer, and you did. Now, the manhunt is over.
For what I did, you know, there's nothing I could do to even begin to make it right, you know, or apologize or say I'm sorry. And I just soon come get me and put me out, man. Then we'll do away with me. The sooner the better.
This is self-confessed double murderer Eddie James.
Yeah, it is.
For 3 weeks, he was the subject of a nationwide manhunt, accused of raping and murdering 7-year-old Toni Nooner and killing her grandmother, Betty Dick. It was a bloody rampage witnessed and reported to police by Toni's 9-year-old sister, Wendy.
He grabbed me, kept on choking her and stuff, and he goes, if you're not dead by count 3, I'm going to start stabbing some more. So she wasn't, he started stabbing some more.
Wendy, Toni, and their 2 little brothers were sleeping over at Grandma's house in Castleberry, Florida on the night of September 20th. Eddie James was a family friend who rented a room from Betty. No one suspected James was capable of this kind of violence. He was a trusted family friend, a frequent guest at family outings, who considered himself an uncle to Toni.
She was like a niece to me, you know. I sort of looked out for her if the other kids were picking on her. Hey, you know, that wasn't just her, that was all the kids, you know. I looked out for all of them. Because there's sick people out in this world.
But Eddie James didn't need to look any further than himself. This picture was taken the afternoon before the murders. Look in his eyes. James now claims he spent that day smoking crack cocaine and used gin and marijuana when the crack ran out. Late that night, James went home to his room at Betty's and says he was, in his own words, in a state of pure rage and raw anger.
I killed Toni first. She was on the couch, and I remember, I don't know why I picked and chose, or if I did, or it was just the first one I reached for, and I just strangled her. And I remember she was like right there. And they say I raped her. And I remember we was talking, and it was, she was dead, and I figured, what the hell, you know? And why not? And then I did what I did. And then I went and killed Betty. I hit her with like a candlestick or something, and that woke her up. And then I killed her. I stabbed her.
Did she say anything to you?
Yes, she asked me why. Why, Eddie? I told her, don't worry about it, just give up the ghost. And it's the anger that's tearing me up, you know. It's like, why, you know, why all this anger? I wish I could understand it. And the little girl, Wendy, had woke up. She seen what was going on, so I grabbed her and tied her up. She asked me if I wasn't going to hurt her brothers, and I said, no, I'm not going to hurt nobody else. I remember saying that. And then I told her she was there to tell what really happened.
Incredibly, little Wendy kept her wits about her. She managed to untie herself and to run to her uncle's house for help.
And then he took off all of her rings that my grandfather gave him, took off of her, I guess, her earrings and her bracelets.
Little Wendy's ordeal outraged many viewers. Your calls flooded our hotlines. In fact, your tips found James almost immediately. You told us he was leaving a trail of pawn slips from Indiana to Colorado as he sold Betty's jewelry for quick cash. For 3 weeks, James kept moving. But when he landed in Bakersfield, California, the jewelry and his luck ran out. Out of food, money, and gas, James went to this state employment office. And that's where an alert viewer spotted him.
I was able to see the teeth, which was a dead giveaway, especially from seeing the program the evening before. And I thought to myself, it can't be this person. Not in Bakersfield. Nothing ever happens here in Bakersfield.
Tipster Priscilla Valdez immediately called our hotline.
So then I went up to the counter to the lady and I told her, I need to use a phone. That gentleman sitting behind me to the left of me was just featured in last night's America's Most Wanted. And she's looking at me like, no way. She said she does